Welcome to the Dylan Experience. This is episode 25. I'm your host, Dylan Sessler. Excited for my next guest. But before that, make sure that whichever platform you're following me on, go ahead and like, subscribe, hit the bell notification, whatever you're doing, just make sure you're following. My next guest joined the Army at 17 to be an air traffic controller, right? We're going to get into that. That'll be exciting to talk about, where she found herself in such places as Iraq. Upon leaving the military, she eventually began to follow her lifelong dream of becoming an entrepreneur. She and a fellow veteran founded their brand, Elevated Oats, to provide a lifestyle that is uplifting and health conscious. Her brand provides granola that is Alaskan made, less sugar, gluten-free, and made with fruits and vegetables. I mean, this is going to be exciting. My guest is also about to become a TedX speaker. Megan Militello, how are you?
I'm doing great. Today is just such a beautiful day. I have to say it's 2222
It is
today, which is awesome. And the sunrise this morning here was just fire. It was just so pink in the air. It was beautiful. How's your day?
Yeah, I mean, great. I mean, I'm in Wisconsin, so it's just like a dreary cold. But you're in Alaska, right?
I am.
Where in Alaska? Like Anchorage?
Yes.
Interesting. I've never been to Alaska outside of a flight to Kyrgyzstan from, US, Alaska for 2 hours and then on to Kyrgyzstan and Afghanistan. So, and it was dark. So, it was like just a weird situation because it was supposed to be daytime where we came from and it was dark. It's like interesting.
Totally. The winter is a little more difficult because the hardest time, it's like 4 hours of daylight. So it's a challenge. There's definitely things that people do, like have these happy lights and things where you're just sitting in front of a light for an hour trying to get vitamin D. Very, very interesting. But I did the same thing on my way to Iraq. I think I stopped in Alaska. They didn't even let us off in the plane. And I would highly recommend coming back and checking it out. It is just magic. It's magic all the time.
Well, you certainly might talk me into it, but we have a lot to talk about. So let's start with your story. Just kind of give me an understanding of how did you become the Megan Militello that we know now?
It's been a journey. It's been a long journey. I feel like many chapters. Life was very chaotic. Childhood. I'm sure many people can resonate with that. Growing up, watching your parents fight or moving around a lot, always being in survival mode. And I didn't really have any ambitions, like what I was going to. I think I wanted to be a mechanic. I was like, I could be a mechanic. I like working with my hands. Didn't really have anything big in my head. And this girl that I knew asked me if I wanted to go listen to the Army Recruiter. I did. And I was like, wow, this sounds like a sweet deal. I'm like, you get college. They're going to give you a laptop, which I never got. Like all of these little things. So I think that day, if not the next, I was taking the practice test. And then within 2 weeks, I was taking the ASVAB. And then like immediately when my recruiter said, you can do air traffic control, I was like, man, they make good money. Like that's a great career path. I'm going to do it. Sign me up. And I still had 9 months left of high school. So it was like a big commitment. I was like, this is what I'm going to do. And I did it. I left 3 weeks after high school. I went to basic training. I was still 17. I turned 18 when I got to my advanced individual training for air traffic control, which was such an awesome job. Like I loved it. And then within 2 months of getting to Hawaii, which was my duty station, I was deploying to Iraq. And so I was 18 years old, turning 19 in Iraq. I ended up coming back, staying 2 years, and then deploying again, turning 21 in Iraq. And then it was kind of like, am I going to stay in or get out? You're kind of getting towards the end of your contract. We were getting to an Afghanistan deployment that was coming up, and they just changed the rules to where it was like, if your ETS date was in the first 6 months, you could get out like 3 months early. But if it was in the second 6 months of the deployment, you had to extend.
Yeah.
And I happened to land in that first 3 months and I was like, I'm good. I'm going to get out. And so I pursued air traffic control. I got out during a hiring freeze, which kind of sucked. But I went to school. I used my GI Bill. I got a bachelor's in aeronautical science. Then I started working for the DoD. I ended up going into the FAA, back to the DoD, getting a master's in aeronautical science. I was very committed to that path. But in the midst of all of this, like professional achievements that I'm like trying to create, my personal life is like chaos. Like I don't know how to be in relationships. I don't know how to have friends. Like I just didn't grow up knowing those things. And
Right.
I've learned that, right? So I got married right after. I actually went through my whole military not getting married, but got married after that to an Army guy. It was a lot of drugs and arguing and not good, just a whole couple years of not good stuff. Then I had a chance going to a new job. Then I left that marriage, met my second husband, where things were great. Like we were creating this life. I was going to move back to Hawaii. I was like quitting air traffic control. Now it's like, okay, the focus is having a family and creating a different life. We were living on the big island of Hawaii, had like over an acre of land, turned the third floor into an Airbnb. I was like quitting my job. I was like, I'm going to do all of this instead. Got certified as a personal trainer. So now it's like kind of shifting into, I want to help people, not necessarily just be stuck in this system in the government where they're threatening us with furloughs and who knows what. You don't really know what's happening. You have a good paying job, but are you really enjoying
Right.
like the job? Right. So it wasn't fulfilling me. And as like life started settling in and things are happening, my second husband had a full psychotic break, like no clue this was going to happen. All of a sudden things just kind of piling up. And he's a veteran too, for the Marines. And so it was just kind of childhood trauma, a lot of things piling up that you don't know, and then you don't know how to deal with or cope or understand. And then it was just like, bam, out of nowhere, our whole life changed. And so with that, I didn't know what to do. I tried what I could, but me trying to like caretake and also comprehend what's happening, like this whole new reality.
Yeah.
I ended up leaving and going and living in my dad's basement in Alaska. So that's what brought me to Alaska. And I kind of just had this, I always wanted to, I was making these plans to do these businesses. And then when I got here, there was kind of like this gap in the market and I used it as a complete distraction. Like I just was like, I'm gonna start this business. And I was doing these shows and it started out with cottage food. So everything I was making was at home. I reconnected with an old friend and I was like, hey, make this logo. And then it just never stopped. And then it just like got bigger and bigger. And like we won the 2021 Veteran Startup of the Year. And I'm like, we're a granola company. Like we're a granola company. What is happening? But we're just really trying to share that message, like that life can be better, but we have to work at it every day. Like it is a balance and it is a practice and it's not easy, but we can overcome so much.
Yeah.
And be better people.
It's incredible. I mean, I've always known like air traffic control to be one of the most stressful jobs in the world, right? And you did that and then went to, here you are selling elevated oats. Like what an interesting transition. And there's what we didn't talk about in the intro is like mountaineering too, which is really interesting. Like I love, that if there was a school that so I'm still in the military. I'm Army National Guard. If there's a school that I want, it's mountain school. Like
I don't even know what they do there.
Well, they climb mountains for sure. We have kind of a branch off here in Wisconsin of mountain school. It's cold weather operations course, all run by civilians. And so it has a lot of the same curriculum that mountain school has. It just doesn't have the mountains. So tell me about that. Like, how does mountaineering kind of involve itself with Elevated Oats? Tell me about that.
I think it's really just come down to me being the ideal customer. Like I'm just trying to share with people. I don't know. We didn't want to be a cereal, right? I don't want to
Yeah.
be a cereal. Like Elevated Oats is not just like have us for breakfast. Like I want people to be outside. Like my business partner and I, she actually, which is really interesting, we were both air traffic controllers together. And this is where our communication like has benefited us as a company because she's in North Carolina. So
Yeah.
we've been building this business like apart from each other
Wow.
for years. Um, so that's been great. But here it was kind of like I got to Alaska. You're combating the cold. I'm starting to make friends, which I don't feel like I ever really did. It's like in the army, you like have friends, you're like forced to be around certain
Right.
people. So it's like, yeah, sure, let's go
Yeah.
out. But I've never really been around my people, like around people that want to go do crazy shit, like run down a mountain, or whatever. Like I just haven't met those kind of people. And in Alaska, they're everywhere. Everybody's doing
Yeah.
something so interesting. They're backcountry skiing or they're snowshoeing, like winter activities. There are so many.
Yeah.
It's summer activities. Oh, it's even better. You have the sun, midnight sun all evening. So it just kind of turned into me meeting the right people and getting addicted to that feeling out there. Like
Yeah.
I used to surf in Hawaii, and the ocean is one thing, but the mountains were just so different. It was so grounding and really seeing like all of the different colors. Like the
Yeah.
mountain looks like a rainbow. Like that's just mind blowing.
Yeah.
It was like constantly being in awe and then being like, I'm just going to do this all the time. It only takes me 10 minutes to drive to the mountains to go for a walk. I don't have to go climb to the summit every time.
Yeah.
So it's yeah, it's just a magical place that's kind of incorporated into my life, and Elevated Oats is such a part of my life that we're like, let's give it to the people out in the mountains. Like how can it, like this is a very light snack. It fits. It
Yeah.
fits for that activity so well. So we've crafted it to kind of be like that, to be for hiking and for the outdoors.
That's awesome. That's it sounds like Alaska's like the place I should live. Because me and a couple buddies always go out in the middle of winter in Wisconsin, right? Last year it was -30. This year is like down to 0. I think it wasn't that bad this year. And we just go camping. Like we're kind of building our repertoire of skills. We're gathering the right materials to do this stuff, the tools. And every year we kind of get more bold. Like last year was pretty bold. It was, we were trying to kind of share this with friends, right? Like others, like civilians that have never done it before. I had just gone through cold weather operations course like 2 years before that. So it was something that was really fresh in my mind. And I was like, I want to go camping. And we were about to get a group together for this weekend. And it turned out to be like the weather's like it's gonna get -30, -35, and people were like, "Yeah, we're not doing that," like, and so me and my roommate from Afghanistan, Kevin, were like, "You still in?" He's like, "Yep." He's like, "I guess we're going," and we get there and we hike out to the peninsulas where we kind of stay, and it's a river. So we get right next to our like right on this peninsula. It's a 1.5 mile walk into the peninsula, and it's a blizzard, right? Like I've never felt something so cool in my life. To like I felt like I was in the movie Revenant, because I'm like literally like
Gosh.
walking through and my beard's freezing. It's the first time I've ever had my beard actually freeze, because I've been in the military for so long. I've never had a beard. But at that point it was like, it was February of 2020. We had just gotten back from Afghanistan. So we didn't have anything. We didn't have drill for, 3 or 4 months. And I was like, beard, and I mean, it is just such an incredible experience to feel that, to see that, right? And to put yourself in the arms of nature and have to survive that, And we, we got ourselves set up and it's snowing. It's like 11 a.m. You're walking in a blizzard and it's, it maintained itself for probably 2 or 3 hours while we started cutting wood. We started, gathering firewood. We started gathering, sticks and branches for our shelter because we made our own shelter too, right? Like as if -30 wasn't enough. We didn't bring a tent, we do it the old fashioned way. And we built this shelter. It started off as sticks and we're like, you know what? Like we're next to a river and a swamp and we started cutting up ice cubes, like 2 to 3 foot ice cubes and building a wall, basically built an igloo kind of thing. Built a fire, ate dinner, ate lunch, like just hung out for a while. And then it was -20 all day. Didn't feel it. We were working so much. We just didn't feel it. We got in our sleeping bags and man, did it get cold, right? Like the fire went out at like 11 because like we just didn't have it set up well. Definitely a learning experience. I felt good until about 4, 5 in the morning. Kevin got up, went to the bathroom. He couldn't get warm again. I went up, went to the bathroom too, got back in. I started getting warm, but Kevin couldn't. And we were like, we got to get going. Like it was at -35. You're like, we got to make, smart choices here. And so we started packing up around 5 or 6 in the morning. And like, I had a good gear set up, I think. And by the time we walked probably 5 minutes, I was warm again. Kevin just was not. He's kind of his cold weather system has kind of gone down. For some reason he's never been able to kind of recover as well from the cold, but he still tries and I love it. And me and him are always, going back to that connection that you have with your friend from Iraq. I have that with my friend from Afghanistan, like we're just willing to do crazy shit and just go have fun. And I love nature and it just makes sense to me, like everything you're saying. It's such a beautiful thing to be out in nature. I wish Wisconsin had mountains because mountains are just another beast,
I would highly recommend taking a trip to Alaska. Like, yes. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yes.
My first experience with mountains was Afghanistan. It was brutal. Those are
I
some
didn't get to
brutal
deal with
mountains.
those mountains. Yeah.
It's just shale. It's like the worst kind of rock you can ever imagine,
Yeah.
Luckily we didn't, we weren't the 101st climbing up the mountains. We would go up them every once in a while, but it was not the infantry style deployment that we had. It was a kind of a route recon QRF deployment. We did security, but the mountains were beautiful. It's a deceptive beauty because you're like, that's where they shoot you from, but it's still a beautiful thing to see,
Crazy. Yeah. That's like looking. Yeah. Very interesting.
Yeah. So Megan, tell me what, when did you know that entrepreneurship was kind of your thing? Like when, that like you, I've read a couple of your blog posts now, and kind of looked into Elevated Oats and kind of learning about you. Like this wasn't a new thing. Where did it come from?
I grew up in a family, just a family business. My grandfather had this company that worked on blood analyzing machines in laboratories. So he started out young, like working in a laboratory, and then it was like all technician, like PMCSing machines, right? Yeah. And my dad, as a young man, started working for him at like 18 and worked for him for 22 years. So now he's in his 40s. I'm in the Army. I worked for my grandfather for a period of time. He's always had the same business. It's always kind of just been this thing. Um, and then my dad moved to Alaska and was like, I'm going to start a business in Alaska. I'm going to do assisted living homes. So he came up to Alaska, started as an assisted living home, opened up a second one, and then wanted to get into the vape industry, like to help people not smoke. So he owned a vape shop. And then he did a juice thing back years ago when that was all cool and hype. And now it's like these vape shops and assisted living homes, and he helps me with my business, which is really nice. So it's just kind of like, it wasn't even the pressure. It was the opportunity that he offered me. He was like, I want you to do something of your own. You're here, basically, like, do it. I had this idea, and he just 100% backed me up. And I ran with it. And now it's become a really big investment. Like, I pulled my retirement to put into the business. It's huge.
Yeah.
But it just started out with just like this one idea and like one recipe, and just kind of taking that chance. So yeah, I guess I've always seen my family take those risks,
Yeah.
and then handle stress very well, like to be a creator,
Yeah.
like to create. Yeah.
Where's it going? Right? Like we've kind of discussed the lifestyle of Elevated Oats, right? Where are you kind of thinking about taking it?
I would love for Elevated Oats to be like a nationally known granola brand. Like on the shelf of the granola store, you'd be like, oh yeah, look at that's Elevated Oats. Just like you would with like Quaker
Yeah.
or Bob's Red Mill, right? It's like this slow process of getting there. We pay a lot of attention to all these like food brands, right?
Yeah.
And Purely Elizabeth, like seeing like certain granola brands and how they've grown and who they've gotten investments from. It's kind of like playing a big game, which
Yeah.
reminds me also of air traffic control, because it's like putting all of these pieces together. So it's just like, how can I make the next move to get this to my person? Like, how can I get it to, we call her Julie, right? Our customer. We're like, how can I get Julie to see our stuff? Like, where do we want to be? And just kind of thinking really through so much, like even the design on the packaging. We started out with these bags that were black, and it's like, okay, well, this feels heavy, right? Or even like looking at the words of what the flavors were. We have this pink one that has beets in it. I call it Velvet Beet. People did not like that. People do not like the word beet in the title. They are not going to buy it. We changed the name and the sales went up like 25%. Like, so you're playing this huge experiment all the time. And it's like such a rush to be able to do that and just try something new and then try something new. And I think that's the key part too, is like, don't be stagnant and stay in one spot. Like, know that change is necessary for transformation.
Yeah. So how do you like, I'm on TikTok, right? I know you know that. I see so much change kind of coming through the platform of TikTok. You know, like you look at social media in general and you look at like what Facebook did, what Instagram did, YouTube, and now I think what you see on TikTok is realness for the first time in a long time in any kind of platform. And one of the things that I think is becoming more real is the whether it's misconceptions or the truth about food. I'm sure that you have some kind of feelings about, you know, like where certain foods kind of stand, and like vegetable oils. You know, I'm sure there's so many things. What do you think about that?
There are so many things. There are so many things. That's just, the food is one part. Like recycling, packaging, and things like that is a whole nother tangent I can go on. But the food part, I really, I had some experiences where I was like, I'm going to change my life. I'm going to eat very differently. I was vegan for like 4 months. Now I've kind of transitioned over years of practice to where I do eat a salad like every other day, or my meals always have vegetables in it. I'm not like vegan or anything, but I would say I eat a lot of plants compared to what you buy out at a restaurant or anything like that.
Yeah.
So when it comes to packaged food, it's kind of the same thing. Like all these companies are so okay with putting a bunch of crap and just letting people eat it, and people don't know any better.
Yeah.
Like they just don't read. It's not important. It's not something they think about, you know. It's like that survival mode. I'm going to go with the cheapest thing, and it's hard. Like I can't provide a cheap granola because all the components are expensive.
Right.
So it's a challenge. It's a challenge. And ultimately, like I could only hope that people are eating more like whole foods, real foods, eat colors,
yeah,
eat rainbow foods.
So define for me, because I'm ignorant about food. And I always want to develop that knowledge. What is the crap?
Okay, let's just go with something really, I think the basic, easiest practice that I like to follow is going around the edge of the grocery store. If you go around the edge of the grocery store, you're pretty much hitting like produce, dairy, you have the meat department there, milk, and then you get to like the bread and things. Everything in the middle, I would be cautious with.
Right.
That's where you got to watch out. That's where you read the labels, like see what's in there. There is this granola brand that's like, we put vegetables in our stuff. And I'm like, no, we put vegetables in our stuff. And it's like, you read the bag and it's like powder. It's like powdered stuff, you know? We don't use preservatives. I don't know how to. That's the thing. Like, I'm not a lab that knows how to manipulate the food to even do that.
Sure.
So everything we do is natural. Like I learned a nitrogen flush, taking out oxygen will help preserve like nuts and things. So we do like all natural things. But besides that, it's an at-home recipe that I just made way bigger. So I'm like, I want you to have these few ingredients, make it versatile so that you're not struggling. Like as a consumer, we're busy nowadays. I don't like cooking all the time, and it's easy to just pop something in the microwave or take it out of the freezer.
Right.
So it's kind of like trying to figure out ways to learn. That's like a challenging part, right? Like I'm trying to provide a food, but I also want you to cook for yourself.
Right.
That's the lifestyle though. It's like, yeah. If you can't pronounce it, it's crap. Let's just go with that. That's another good tip. If you can't pronounce it, or if you don't know what it is.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah. It's pretty, you know, like I don't watch a ton of content. I make more content than I really watch. So it's really interesting. Like whenever I open TikTok and I see videos talking about food, and I see videos talking about like just I don't know if it's just it's corruption in food in general, like looking at how what is it, like the Quaker brand and like cereals, you know, and how like vegetable oil based cereals have the heart association symbol on it, even though like vegetable oils are like one of the worst things that you can have for your heart. Like it's really interesting to see that stuff kind of permeating through TikTok, where it never permeated through Instagram or Facebook or anything like that. And I think go ahead.
I'm very surprised that you're having that pop up on your feed. Like I haven't seen anything like that. I'm very curious about it.
TikTok's interesting, right? Like we all have different TikToks, you know, like the algorithm is real interesting, you know?
It is.
And it's weird because like I'll go to a military school. Like I went to sniper school last year, and all of a sudden my TikTok became military. It's like TikTok doesn't know I'm in the military until I'm at a military base with other military guys talking about the military. And then all of a sudden, hey, my TikTok changed, my algorithm changed.
Wow.
You know, it's interesting, obviously. So let me ask you this. Like, when, first of all, I need a question for context. When did you start Elevated Oats? What year?
August 2019.
Where did you push into in terms of like social media?
I went heavy on LinkedIn for myself personally, kind of working on being this thought leader and becoming very known in the community. I So interesting. I actually read like 8 pages of this book right before I left Hawaii in the midst of all of this crap happening, come into Alaska, and it was called Known. And it was just like, be consistent, do all your stuff, like do it every day. Like if that's what you're known for, that's what you're known for. And so I kind of ran with that. We pushed heavy on Instagram and Facebook, but started out so different. Started out hiring out this contractor that was just like posting a picture, nothing much to it. And then we went to another contractor where it was a lot of strategy, like certain content's going on this platform, certain content's going on this platform. On these days, it's going to be this. It was a little too much.
Yeah.
With what we've learned throughout, I don't know, maybe we went like a year and 9 months of doing this with other people. My business partner was like, I want to do it. And I said, go for it. And it really, like, she just does the branding. She does the branding for the whole business. So she really made our Instagram, that's our bread and butter, like made our Instagram look amazing. And then I'm the one that mostly will make like the little TikToks and put it on reels or things like that. So we kind of both tackled those areas. But then we started a Facebook group too, and that was kind of like-minded individuals. Let's go hiking. We want you involved in the business. Hey, we're going to do this test flavor. What do you think we should do next? Yeah, it's like
a really good idea.
I only have so many ideas, you know, like I would love to know your input on what you guys want. Like, tell me what you want so we can make it happen. And it's really solidified us in the community too. Like we get out and do a lot of outreach stuff. I volunteer for Junior Achievement, which teaches kids entrepreneurship, which is really cool. We've donated a lot of granola to different giveaways and things. So we've become very known on that local small level, which has allowed us to really test our product out on the market and then get solid people behind us that are honest with us and tell us, you know, I'm not into that flavor or whatever. We're like, okay, we're going to change everything. Yeah, it's been a great way to handle Alaska. And I think now we're ready to start getting bigger.
Yeah. As you should. Like I think you've probably primed yourself into a moment in time where people actually are going to notice, right? Like that's what it seems like. It seems like the world is ready for genuine, authentic people like that, rather than the corporate mergers of people that don't really care for anything but getting profits and making the business all about money. I think we're kind of entering into a situation where small business might actually have a chance of becoming the next thing. And depending on how they actually outreach is how it determines where they actually go. Or at least that's what I think.
Yeah, I think that I would agree. I think that small businesses, people are realizing too, like difficulties in supply chain, you know, not wanting to go to the big stores where everybody's at. Keeping your dollar local does support the local, like it's huge. It's a huge benefit to keep your money local. And, you know, because it's just like regular people, like we're just regular people, like trying to make something happen. We went to this wholesale show and the buyer from Walmart is like, oh, I want your stuff. This would be great. And I'm just like, oh my God, like we could be in Walmart. Like that's just right. I'm like, okay, I want to go to Cars Safeway. Like now I'm like, have all these plans, right? I'm like, we could do this. Like we're doing it. We're definitely doing it. This last month we sold 2 pallets, which the one was our first one. And then they bought a second one. So we're just like, dang, it's happening. Like the years of consistency and dedication and practice, years
Yeah.
of practice, right? And it's just like nonstop, everyday practice.
So do you have like do you have a physical location where, is it a big operation? Like what are you looking at for, like, are you looking to grow? Like what are things? Tell me about that.
Okay, super cool actually, because I get to say that I have a factory.
That's awesome.
Literally have a factory, which is
Yeah.
awesome. It's a small, it's like 1,500 square feet. It used to be a Pizza Hut, and we've been in there for 2 years now. We actually use pizza ovens to cook the granola, which is super cool. Had no clue that was going to work. Like, so many things have been serendipitous with this business that just, yeah,
Figuring things
pizza
out.
ovens. I know, right? I'm like, thanks, universe. And so we've had this for 2 years. We've started building it out. This last year, we went from no shelves in our office to 5 shelves in our office with several boxes. And it's just been a very transformative year. We changed our packaging 3 times in the last year. So now we're like, okay, we're actually talking to the right customer. We're actually making it how we want it to be, like communicating the message we want to communicate.
Yeah.
So now it just feels like I'm ready for it to be a consistent thing, like baking. I want baking to be happening 3 times a week type of thing. Very consistent operation is my goal right now, to get to that flow. And I know that the summer is going to definitely pick up for us, because in Alaska, just
Movement.
tourist season in the summertime. Yeah.
Yep.
So it's just hiring the right people, keeping the machine going, and growing it now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's
More
exciting.
pallets. Yeah, more pallets. That's what I would like to be doing.
Yeah. Tell me about the TED Talk.
Yeah, I'm gonna be doing a TED Talk in March here in Anchorage. And I'm pretty much gonna tell you what I told you in the beginning. I think I actually may go back and watch this and kind of get some notes from the things that I said, because
Good.
it's really about like the power of starting over and taking action, right? And doing the next thing, because I was not this joyous 2 years ago. Like, it
Yeah.
has been a lot of work, right? To get to this point of not survival, like in the head, right? Like not thinking always in survival mode, or not letting the trauma just constantly trigger you, like being able to see it, step back, recognize patterns, make changes, analyze thoughts, like so many different things, continuous growth. Yeah.
So how did you do that? How, like, that's such a massive thing to approach, to attack, to overcome, to heal from. Like, what did you do? Like, how did you get from, 10 years ago to now, to where you are joyous, you are looking forward, right? Like, tell me about that.
Okay, I would give it a few key things. Support. Number one, have a support system. It's really difficult if you don't have a support system, because even like the position that I was in with my second husband, like when things started to get really bad, I wasn't on social media at all. I didn't have anybody. I started listening to some podcasts. I would call my family and stuff, but I started listening to podcasts, and that's what really opened my eyes to being like, I should be my best friend. Like, the voice in my head should be helping me out, not
Yeah.
putting me down, And so it just really came into this conscious effort of, I am not going to be that anymore. I'm not going to be that anymore. My mistakes do not define me. Like, what happened to me is not like my fault. It happened. Things have happened. Everybody goes through a lifetime of who knows what, and then we act like we don't, that someone else isn't going through something. Like, I really don't like people that are dicks to other people, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like, you don't even know what they're going through.
Right.
Have some empathy.
Yeah.
So it really just, okay, so support. Number one, support.
Yep.
Huge. Family and friends. You are like the 5 people you surround yourself. So do not, like, think about that. Like, what energy are you putting around you? what do you want to be? Like, if all my friends smoke weed and don't do anything, where am I going to go? I'm going to go smoke weed and not do anything. But if all my friends are like owning businesses and making these moves or doing TED Talks or being on a board of who knows what, I'm like, oh my gosh, look at these people around me.
Yeah.
Like, it makes me think that it's possible. Like, I can do anything.
Yeah.
Look at what all these amazing people are doing. So that one's huge. And then I would say that mind, body, and soul aspect, like really taking care of yourself in all the ways. It's not just one way. It's like so many ways, you know, doing something to get into your body, taking those thoughts, like going and getting into the mountains. Like, I try to do something for myself every day. Yoga, meditation, like if it could be that practice every day, like I strive for that. It's difficult. But I have great friends that don't let me just be guilty for not doing something for one day, or feel like I can't, you know, things are still moving, like everything is still moving. And all the people that I surround myself with, we're always kind of telling each other like, dude, it's cool. Like, that's just, it'll be like, that's just the people pleaser in me, like figuring out how to deal with those and approach it in a different way. Yeah. And then the outside, the nature, the getting into that, and community. I think community is huge too. Getting around not just those main people that you're around, but being involved in like creating something. Yeah.
It's really powerful.
I've never done any of these things. And I think that that is definitely the key, has been the key in this Alaska life. Like, yeah, it's magical. It's great. But you have to go for it, right? Like, if you don't go for it, it's not just going to happen. Like, you can manifest your reality, but you got to make the moves.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I know that better than a lot of people. I guess my biggest question for you is what were the situations in life that inspired you to, well, I shouldn't say inspired you to, but rather what situations or moments in your life do you look back to for inspiration, look back to for understanding or perspective, or what situations have you had to look back to really kind of gather the understanding of this happened to me, and you've kind of had to rewrite those chapters. What were those moments for you, if you don't mind kind of digging deep?
I've been in a lot of therapy. It's nice. It's nice to understand, because I didn't know, and you don't know. I started out here doing this EDMR therapy. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah, EMDR. Yeah.
EMDR, yeah. EMDR. So I started out doing that, and all of my trauma, I thought, was really surrounded around this marriage and like a few other relationships before that, having this fear of just not being confident and not the person that I knew myself to be in the past. And doing that really took me way back, like took me to the childhood stuff that I did not think had to do with anything. I'm just like, yeah, it was just a rough childhood, whatever. Like, no, that shaped every single thing that has made me who I am.
Yeah.
And when I came to Alaska and I was living in my dad's basement, I have two little brothers that are 9 and 10 at this time, and my stepmom, who's been my stepmom since I was like 14 years old or something. And this is the first time, I'm in my 30s, right, living in this house. A lot of things that I saw, I was like, that's what messed me up. Like, why would you talk to a child that way, but you're going to talk to me this way? Like, we're still human. That's a human too.
Right.
Why would you do that? And for my dad, he saw my point. Like, he understood. And then he started kind of looking back at things too. And I'm like, where was your dad? Like, what happened with your mom and dad? How did they treat you? Did they tell you that they loved you? Like, what was the physical contact? So really generationally making these changes and hopefully making a better life for my brothers that's like not the shit that I went through. We're
Right.
not feeling the way that I felt, like that I'm not good enough, or that they're not giving me the attention that I should actually have as a kid, like not being nurtured. Right. So that was huge. Like coming to Alaska, seeing that, and that changed everybody's life. Like my parents got a divorce 17 years later. My dad's got the boys. They're living totally different life. Like I came here seeing screaming, and it just came down to like, I'm not going to live like that again.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do it again. I've done it. I know what it's like.
Right.
Like that is not right. It's not a good feeling.
Yeah.
So anytime things like kind of come up, they get back. Like I know that feeling. I'm familiar. I'm not gonna, I don't want to be there anymore.
Right.
I want to get used to this feeling. It's uncomfortable. I'm uncomfortable here because it feels so good.
Yeah.
Like that's what I need to get used to. So it's like anytime just looking back, thinking, you know, I just didn't know any better. I didn't know any better. The people around me didn't know any better.
Yeah.
What do they know?
Do you
They
think
know what they were taught.
do you think you've replaced the chaos of your childhood with the chaos of entrepreneurship? And I know you
Yes.
thought of it.
Yes. I love the thrill. I love the thrill, but I will tell you, I have gotten a lot better when it comes to my thoughts. And just being like, I'm not overwhelmed, I'm whelmed. This is just
Yep.
very whelming for me.
It's like
Yes.
I'm just elevated enough to be able to overthink everything I want to overthink, but not overthink all the things that I shouldn't overthink. Right?
Yes, I like this kind of thrill. Yeah.
Yep.
I'm used to this. Yes, it's very hard for me just to like sit at home next to the fire or something. Like it's a challenge to relax and kind of calm down. That's
Yeah.
part of the work.
I've I've been there myself. I've actually I'm very introverted, and I very much enjoy isolation. So I have the ability to do that. But there's certainly times in my life where I'm like, I don't feel like I'm doing anything for myself, and for me it's kind of stepping outside of not doing anything is almost the uncomfortable part for me. Because as a kid, like I grew up with my dad committed suicide when I was 6. So then after that, the next man in my life was abusive, and very, very much a disciplinarian. And first of all, I was afraid of him because I had just lost my dad, and stepping into this environment was like, fuck, like, what did I do? What did I do wrong? And back then, back in the 90s, no parents didn't know how to explain, you know, explain in a way to protect the human psyche at that age, right? Like, I think that's a pretty consistent understanding of what the 90s were like and everything before it. And even the 2000s, right? I think it hasn't really changed all that much. Social media's kind of exposed it, and maybe it's changing. But I would isolate, right? I remember going in my room and playing with Legos all day long if I could, right? I would build all sorts of things. I would lose myself in my own world because that was safe to me. And what I've found in my adulthood is that I can do that if I want to. I love video games. Like I'll go play video games all day long if I could, but I don't, because I know that's too safe for me, and what my business, what my book, what my future books, what my podcast is a way to allow me to step outside of my comfortable safe zone and reconnect with what is actually necessary in my life. And that's, for me, it's chaos. For other people, I notice that, like, for you, like, you reconnect with the chaos in a healthy way, right? I think it's healthy, right? Like, I'm a business owner too. I know what it's like. This sucks sometimes, it's, I'm trying to think of 464 different things, and it's like, I don't know if I'm getting them all done. So it's interesting to see how other people connect with that. And I just think it's really interesting how you do it and versus how I do it. And it's it's remarkable. I love, the most beautiful thing about this is that there's no two ways that are ever going to be the same. The way you do it, the way I do it, the way anyone else in the world does it, it's going to be different. And that's, I think, the beautiful thing, and also one of the hardest things for people to understand, is that I can write a book and you may relate to it, but you're not going to do it the same way I did, and it's
Totally.
it's interesting, like what do you think about kind of that healing journey? What was it for you? What was it for other people that you've seen? You know, what are your recommendations in terms of how to kind of understand that mindset and reshape it? Obviously, you talked about support and looking back and mind, body, and soul, but what are the intrinsic things that helped you kind of maintain it, right? Because it's not an easy thing to just do all of that stuff and make it all happen. What keeps you going?
Oh, man, it's I feel like I'm just now getting to this point where I'm like, oh yeah, this is just living.
Yeah,
um, and then I get those moments and I'm like, oh man, panic.
right.
But it's fine. It's fine. Um, Intrinsically, it's an ever-going practice, right?
Yeah.
And we create our own realities and those stories that we tell. I have affirmations. I get a notification 10 times a day giving me a different affirmation. It's like awareness. It comes down to, I think, awareness is the first step in practicing making it shorter and shorter and shorter until like you're thinking about the thought as it's happening. You are an observer.
Yeah.
Definitely continuously exploring into that realm, reading those kind of personal development type of books that all have to do with that. Eckhart Tolle is really great, like The Power of Now. I started out with Untethered Soul by Michael Singer, also great. He has like a podcast too.
Mm-hmm.
But really just releasing the ego, coming down to like seeing as this is not me. Like, this is not my true essence of who I am. And stepping into those things that I enjoy.
Can I interrupt? Because
Yeah.
I think we talk about ego, but we don't really understand it. What do you mean when what do you mean when you say stepping out of your ego? What does that truly mean?
For me, I would say it is not just like reacting to anything. It's understanding that I have control over this reality that I am in. And I'm not going to let a side of me where I'm being triggered and then kind of just responding to that. Like,
Mhm.
what has driven me to do that? What has driven me to respond that way? Why am I being triggered? Why are you triggering me right now? Like, what happened to
Yeah.
me, or what way are you responding? Really coming down to like being able to communicate that. But resistance, it's I can see it almost, especially like in my little brother, right? When
Yeah.
you see a little kid and they're upset and angry and they're gonna just hold on to that feeling as much as they can. And I'm like, dude, just let it go, man. What are
I
you
th-
holding on to it for?
I think it's the concept of like, is your identity created by someone else or is it created by you? Because, like when we talk about ego, ego is that centralized identity of ultimately who you want to become, but if it's crafted by somebody else, if it's crafted in the reactions to other people, you don't have control of that ego. And so every time someone pushes into you, you react to them and you're not really grasping the control of what your identity really looks like, right? Like it's
You're very defensive,
yeah, like
very defensive.
you're trying to prove yourself to everyone around you your worth, when the reality is when you craft your own identity, which is I think what you have certainly done is you've looked inward, and rather than answer the questions of other people, you've answered your own questions. And so when other people question you, you look at whether the question is actually right or wrong, right? Is the question crafted to actually understand me, or is the intention of the question to try to interrupt my processing or try to be malicious or whatever? And so you dismiss the question altogether unless it's a worthy question for your identity to actually answer, right?
Yeah, I feel like you're reading me.
It's
Yes,
I try to.
I do that.
I try to, like my whole life goal, and this is something I haven't really talked too much about on my own podcast, but I think since my dad died, right, I found myself in a situation where, for some context, I felt like I knew he was going to die the day he left, right? And so I'm sitting in the kitchen. He's in there, my mom's in there, my sister's in there, and this overwhelming sensation. I'm 6 years old, so maybe this is just a common situation for 6-year-olds, because I've had a 6-year-old and he never wanted me to leave either. I felt like he was never coming back that day, right? I felt like when he told us he's got a meeting, he's not coming home until tomorrow, I felt like he was lying to me. And that feeling was what defined, I think, where I am now fundamentally, because I have not stopped trying to understand people my entire life. And it's when I look at what I just did and trying to understand who you are and trying to explain it and craft the words for it, I do that with everything and everyone in my life. I try to understand to a level, in a way, like to make sure I don't lose again, and to try and make sure that I am not the reason that someone chooses to walk away from the world itself, not just me, but the world, because you don't have to if you have support. You don't have to when people actually open their eyes and see what I see, right? But I've spent 30 years trying to understand people, and I still don't get them, right? Like I still get it wrong. And so I don't know what I don't know, but I keep trying. And I think when I look at my journey, I realize that I've spent 30 years trying to understand people, and most people have never spent one. And that's what we're up against,
Mm-hmm.
it's a son of a bitch.
Yeah, it is. It's unfortunate. Yeah. And I think that those feelings too, like we are very powerful. Like those intuition feelings,
Yeah.
they're not frivolous.
No, they are not. No, they are not.
I'm sorry about your dad. That's really crappy for a child to have to go through.
Don't be. I love the intention, but I don't need it. If I needed it, I wouldn't be the person I am.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's when I look at what happened to my dad, right? Was it my fault? No, I used to think it was, right? And maybe in some very indirect way of him having a child, right? And me being that child, to him, maybe I was, but that's not me being, me being that fault. It's him having a child and not understanding the responsibilities of it. I look at where I am now as a fundamental necessity for that to have happened. And, as hard as it has been throughout my life, what my dad chose to do has also become, I think, the greatest motivating moment in my life. It's been the greatest situation that has ever impacted me, whether negative or positive. I think it's a net positive, unfortunately, for him, because he has to be that kind of fall guy in my life. And it's not a bad thing. I don't make him a negative thing in my life. I think if I'm being realistic, he was hurt. He was hurt a lot, and there's so many different things that happened to my dad. And, you know, I wish I had the, you know, the time machine to go back and see what he went through and what it was like for him and have a conversation about all of that. But it was, if that's what it took to get me here, I'm not sorry. I'll never be sorry for that, because, you know, look what I've done, you know, 550,000 people, and I'm trying to show people a path forward. I'm trying to connect people with people like you, you know, and people who are doing fundamentally good things for not just themselves, but the world, you know, like I'm not sorry about that.
Yeah.
It's as hard as it is, it's a good thing.
And I'm sure it's been a lot of also growth and framing and working on that narrative too.
Yeah. It's right.
Yeah.
It's, I look at trauma as, you know, if you want to overcome trauma, you got to write a book. And I'm not talking about a physical book. I'm talking about, you have a story to tell from point A to point wherever the fuck you die, right? And if you're not editing that book every single day of your life to tell the story that you are better than the person that you think you are, you're not going to get there. And so it's like you said, you got to do it. You got to step up every single day. You've got to show up, and you've got to edit that story. You've got to rebuild that narrative. And every single day, you've got to try and become the hero of that book. And, you know, we can look at every single Marvel, you know, hero movie in the world and realize that those heroes go through some of the hardest things people will ever have to go through. And the point is that they come back, right? If you're not coming back, you're not going to complete your story the way you want it. So step up, you know. It's like,
Love that.
start writing your book. You know, that's,
Yeah.
I love the analogy, because one, I've written a book, and it's like the editing process was the process, you know, like you start writing the book, and that's the easy part for me. Rewriting, editing, and going back through the book took far longer than the writing the book ever took for me.
Interesting.
It's brutal, but that's the work.
I feel like I'm avoiding this TED Talk thing. Like,
you know what? I've got a few speaking engagements coming up, and I'm like, what am I going to say? Like, I don't even know. It's like,
yeah, that's the practice, right? It's like,
right.
I just started reading this book called Silver Goldfish. Have you heard of it?
I haven't. I'm going to look it up.
I would recommend it. It's for like pitching your business or public speaking, anything like that. But I'm a little bit into it now, and it's already giving me a little bit more confidence going into these public speaking type of engagements.
Sure. Oh yeah, I'm going to look into it.
Yeah.
So what do you have a topic for your TED Talk?
That's going to be The Power of Starting Over. I think that's my working title, but I'm feeling good on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Power of Starting Over. I'm planning on, this is my TED Talk.
I love it. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. So it stares me in my face every single day. And I have to have like a draft turn. I already had to have a draft turned in. I have some stuff written, you know, it's a work in progress. I've used TikTok to practice. So
Yep.
I kind of like go on there, do like small parts.
Good.
Yeah.
Now is your TikTok, yeah, now we're getting into you. Like, is your TikTok Elevated Oats, or is your TikTok you and then Elevated Oats and everything else you're doing?
Okay, so my personal TikTok is like me, period. Like motivational, inspiration type things, daily affirmations. Sometimes I have a lot of plants, so I like put my plants on there. Being in the mountains, hiking, those kinds of things. And then the Elevated Oat side is in the factory, behind the scenes, in the mountains, like very,
Sure.
yeah, its own little thing, which is nice.
Have you doubled down on TikTok yet?
I have not doubled down on TikTok. I was like, I'm going to do it. And then I'll start. And then life has just been chaotic. So it's hard. It's hard to, I'm sure I could do something so quick and easy though.
I promise you, your life will change when you start doubling down on the platform that actually offers you organic reach.
Mm.
If you get, like, obviously I'm here in front of you because of TikTok, like 550, like 4,000 people follow me.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I'm not that good, right? Like, I'm not that smart. Like, I try to be, but I'm not. And so somehow I've manipulated 554,000 people into thinking I'm a decent guy,
How do you feel? Okay, what do you contribute the growth to?
Authenticity. I didn't
And then
manipulate
what do
anybody.
you, how often are you posting? Because you say double down on it. So
Every
it's
day.
like just once a day type of thing?
Sometimes more if you can, right? Like,
Okay, just every day.
realistically, if anybody that's listening, or you, right? Because I think you're the one that's most likely, I'm talking to you. If you want a TikTok growth strategy, right? A TikTok growth strategy is different from a TikTok value strategy. Kind of the same thing, but not, right? What you're doing is value, right? You're sharing who you are with people, but that doesn't work in an algorithm that's trying to reach millions of people, right? Because not everybody's going to think what you do is interesting enough to watch for 7 seconds or more, right?
Right.
That's how the algorithm works. So what the growth is trends, right? You find the trends, you like, whether it's the music, whether it's the type of video, like you'll see different styles, you'll see Charlie D'Amelio making dancing videos, and you're like, everybody recreates them. And the first ones that get there get the attention, right? Think about it with your brand. Think about it with you. Think about it with your story, is that you step into these trends and you make something that's focused around you. If there's anything I've been good at, it's been that, right? You look at, you go back and look through my videos, many of the high hitting videos are recreations of trends at the time of those trends being popular, but it's been about my story, right? Talking about my suicide attempt in 2015, talking about my dad's suicide, talking about child abuse, talking about depression, PTSD, war, like talking about all these things that I talk about in general, the value, but I push them with the trend using TikTok. And that's how you grow, right? If you want to grow, right? If you want to elevate yourself with a lot of people seeing who you are, it's not hard, but you have to do it within the realm of what the platform's trying to offer.
Got to work the platform.
Yeah.
But there's like everything.
There's no other platform right now that offers what TikTok is offering. So if you're investing all your time into LinkedIn and Instagram, YouTube's a different story because YouTube can monetize. But if you're investing into other platforms, you're not going to get the same response.
Yeah. I'm going to try it now.
I wouldn't just try it. If it's,
I'm going to do it.
If it, it's going to go away, right? Facebook, Facebook organic reach went away. Instagram organic reach went away. They came back with IG Reels, but guess what? It's not there. It's not like TikTok, right?
Right.
And so if you're going to try it,
don't wait.
But the longer you wait, the more likely you are to not get what you want.
Gosh, man, do you know how long people have been saying to get on a TikTok? But
I know.
I'm about this. I'm about this because I feel like I've just gotten into the TikTok groove to where I understand it a little more, at least how to use it, as a creator. So I can do that. I can do some trendy stuff.
Yeah. Do it. Please do. Because people need to see you, and people need to see what you're offering, because it's fundamentally good.
Oh, thank you.
Right. That's what life is about.
Real
right?
stuff. Yeah. Right. It's just real. Yeah.
It's like, I'm real. You're real. Like, real people need to be more available for people, because this isn't fucking Instagram, and we're not trying to make life look perfect. Life sucks. and we're all trying to survive it together in the best way we can.
Trying to be better every day.
Absolutely. No, I mean, like, if I were you, right, if I had to start over and rebuild, even with your brand, I would fundamentally not touch any other thing outside of TikTok for at least 90 days, right? Like, you know, I would build an email list. I would build a Facebook group. Those are two fundamental places where you can build community.
Totally.
But I would spend 90 days every day making TikToks, finding the trends, you know, diving in and making videos about what I love, connecting with those people and making it something of value, but also jumping on those trends and just smashing them.
Okay, I can do that. I can do it.
It works.
Yeah, I'm going to work on doing that.
But make it you, right? Like, you take those trends and make them you.
Yes. And I feel like I've seen a couple of these little videos and I've had the thought, it's
you got the ideas.
It's just the doing it.
Right. You've got the ideas. If you're anything like me, and I think you are, right? Like, you have, when you look at these things, like, I think you and I are probably in the same place of, like, you don't look at life in the way you used to. You look at life and, like, that's an opportunity. That could be a TikTok video. That could be an Instagram post, right? Like, you I know it. I know
everything
you.
In life. Everything in life. Can I record this right now?
It's no longer the like, I'm gonna enjoy this just by sitting here. It's, I could record this and make this into content. I could make this into, wow, I could make that product. I could fill that gap. I could, you know.
Yes. All the time.
We traded in a 9-to-5 for a 24/7. It's just how our mind works now.
Which is nice. Like, I don't mind it. I don't either. It's exciting.
Sometimes my wife doesn't love it because sometimes I'm like, I need to make a TikTok. No, okay, I'll put it away. But yeah, I mean, it's nice. That's the life of an entrepreneur, isn't it?
100%. Oh my gosh, everything, problem solving, no matter what. Next opportunity. Yes, we're actually I'm applying for a Gordon Ramsay business pitch competition show.
That'd be badass.
Some producer reached out to us on Instagram. I know. I was like, well, I guess we should try. Why not?
Right. I mean, anything attached to Gordon Ramsay, it's bound to get your attention.
Right. Yeah, crazy. I would love to send you some granola so you can actually try it.
I'm all about it.
Cool.
I'm all about it. Nice. And I'll make a TikTok about it.
Nice.
For sure.
I'm gonna blow your mind. You're gonna see this pink granola and be like, what? And it's like, yeah, it's all natural.
You should do influencer marketing as well, right? Obviously TikTok's huge, you know, and it's such a diverse place for many sets of eyes. And when you start kind of connecting with influencers and making it worthwhile to them, like, too easy.
Definitely.
Do it.
Yep.
Did you think this was going to be a strategy session when you got on this podcast?
You need to be on Instagram. No, you need to be on TikTok. I want you on there on 7 p.m. right? And then like put another post up at 11 a.m. I'm sure too, there's like times during the day that's better. So you're hitting different time zones.
So from my understanding is TikTok is based on your time zone. So you post, like, from what I've seen throughout my history, 12 p.m. to 6 p.m. is about the best time.
Interesting.
Like, I've seen people narrow it down to like 12 to 1, you know, 1 to 3, and then 5 to 6. Like, I would just post within 12 to 6 and you'll probably be good. Right.
Got any other tips? I feel like you should just give me another one.
just shotgun blast. Right.
Okay.
It's quantity. You know, TikTok is not about, it's not the YouTube. It's not about producing like perfect content. It's rough. It's real. It's authentic. People want that.
Okay. So this like is so easy too.
It is. That's why I love TikTok. I'm like, when I started TikTok, I was so overwhelmed with like, I'm an introvert. I'm not going to like this. And then after about 3 or 4 weeks of posting, I was like, it's not that bad. You know, like I just share what I think that day and talk about things like trauma and things like, you know, domestic violence, trauma bonds, CPTSD, like PTSD. I just talk about life. And I connect with people the way that I wish I would have been connected to in 1997, right? When I was struggling with all of this stuff. And it's simple. You've already got a customer, right? Like what was her name? Julie?
Julie.
Yeah. Like you already got a customer ideal, like connect to Julie, right? Find the real world Julie and like, hey, be like, hey, Julie, I want to send you some oats just because you are literally our ideal customer. And we love you.
I love it. Yes.
Like you're Julie.
And you should be eating elevated oats.
Like just do that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
So many things, dude. It's nonstop. It's great.
Right. I did not expect this to be a TikTok strategy session. Sorry. I'm
it's
sorry
okay.
if I push that on you.
You see the potential. I get
Absolutely.
it. It's just about, yeah. And you know, I've said too, maybe like a few weeks ago, I'm like, I'm going to do this. It's hard sometimes just with you know, you're wearing so many hats too as a business owner. Yeah. So that's just like one piece of the puzzle.
My next step is YouTube. YouTube is, you know, it makes more sense for me as a coach. I think honestly, products are really beneficial for TikTok right now, just because you can get that attention. YouTube is a monetizable platform for coaches, right? Like, because I'm not selling a physical product that I need you to see. I need you to see me. And it helps that if you can see me and I get paid for you seeing me, that's awesome. So obviously the podcast is on there, but I want to start talking about what I talk about on YouTube and kind of going in more depth and giving people more understanding of, you know, what I do and what I know, what I've talked about, you know, many of the things we've talked about. But yeah, I think if there's two platforms right now that are just big, it's TikTok and YouTube.
Nice. Yeah, YouTube, I just saw, I was like looking into this yoga thing and the guy had a members only. Yep. I was like, oh, okay. Let's see how they're doing this.
It's become so, everything's just become so interesting, right? Like,
I agree.
I don't know, like it's interesting to me, like looking at like your history with social media. Like, what do you think about how do you think social media has impacted life for not just you, but for the world?
Interesting. Yeah, I got off of social media during like the election time frame, 2016, and then it was 3 years of maybe like the first year it was kind of there, just don't touch it. And then I finally just deleted everything because it seems so polarized. You know, your feed is like how you create it. I mean, what's going to penetrate that? How are you seeing new things and different ideas? And I just like the news, you know, sitting and just kind of being fed negative events. Like, yeah, these things are going on and it sucks, but is it affecting you right now? Can you do anything about it? Like, how is it affecting your life? Right. Is it something you really want to be putting your energy into? So I kind of just stopped feeding that energy into it. And getting back onto it totally was interesting because then it turned into an entire tool. And I'm like, well, this is now, it's not even about just sharing like, oh, I get these memories. You know, you get memories and it shows you something from years ago. And I'm like, what was I even thinking?
Oh my God, yes.
I don't even know what that means.
I was dumb as hell sometimes.
Why was I so angry?
I know, right? Like you get like the Facebook posts from like 2008 when they're like back in like when we did it in the third person, like Dylan Sessler is thinking ... What are you thinking about? Like, what are you what are you trying to say with that? Like,
Yeah.
it's so interesting kind of look back at like, what the fuck was I doing?
What did I want people to do?
Right.
Like, how did I expect people to respond to that? Yeah, so interesting. So now using it as a tool has been really amazing, like having the groups, I think it's a great way to find friends or support systems, but it's
Isn't that weird?
having the right mindset about it. Yeah, it
Is it
is.
like
It's
when you look back and like, you think 20 years back, people are like, don't get in a car with a stranger, right? Oh, you're on a chat room. That's weird. You better watch out. There's predators there. And now we're actually having conversations. Like I actually have conversations with my clients of like, you can meet people online, right? Like you go to a Facebook group with, there's a Facebook group I follow with Matt Pfeiffer, who's a trauma. He's like a narcissism trauma coach that
mm,
helps a lot of women kind of overcome those situations. I think he mostly works with women, might work with men too, but he's got a Facebook group called Wounded Healing or Wounded Healers or something like that, where people like talk about what they went through with their narcissist, which is so huge. It's such an interesting thing to see now, where where narcissism is actually having its time in the light. Whether that's a good thing or bad thing is up for debate, but there's people that never had the ability to voice what they need to voice and connect in ways that they couldn't connect before. Social media has kind of made that possible. It's really interesting to see that.
it is. Yeah. I think, yeah, it really comes down to too, like how you're using it.
Yep.
Do you use it in that beneficial way?
Right. And then there's the assholes that talk about, fat shaming and like sexually assaulting people, right? And outwardly talking about how to actively do that. It's like, what the fuck? You know, it's,
And then it's like, who's on that person's wall?
I know.
Who's commenting? I know. I also don't like seeing those kinds of things. There are a few videos I feel like I've seen in my lifetime where I'm like, I really didn't need to see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see. So I don't normally see like the actual video. I see the stitches of it.
Mm,
Because I'm on a very like anti-sexual assault type TikTok algorithm right now, which is great for me because I get to see people actually empowering themselves to talk back and speak out about these things.
yeah.
But it's interesting that platforms are in a really interesting situation, right? Like the freedom of speech kind of discussion is always interesting. You've got the Neil Young and Joe Rogan thing with Spotify. It's very interesting to see where that goes. It's interesting to see where platforms go with, there's been, claims about TikTok allowing pedophilia type content to exist. It's I think TikTok has really brought up uh, a lot of discussions that have been kind of brushed under the rug with things like Instagram and Facebook and YouTube, where those things exist on those platforms too, but TikTok's real enough for people to actually outright call it out and say this is fucked up.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's interesting.
That is interesting. Um, yeah. It's definitely been a whirlwind. I think especially too with COVID, like that's a whole nother thing that has thrown a
Yeah.
wrench into the system. Uh, so it's been interesting to see how corporations approach things and businesses approach things, and
Right.
yeah, so many things.
And it's all
I would,
so political.
yeah, and I would think too, like these platforms, like people can just upload shit. I mean, how many videos are being uploaded a day for them to be going through,
Right.
right? So it's a challenge. Right?
Yeah.
That's a challenge for those businesses.
Yeah. It's like,
Yeah.
is it too big to fail type business?
Mm,
Like
mm,
if TikTok went down tomorrow, like what would national outcry be, and what would government response be? Like, it's an interesting discussion to think about, or an interesting thought to think about, right?
I mean, didn't they have it to where like China was going to buy it and it was going to get shut down and there was
Yeah.
all of this stuff happening already?
Yeah.
That was, I mean,
That was in
I heard
2020.
about it. I heard about it through people to where I was like, wow, this is like pretty significant to where I'm actually hearing about it.
Yeah. It's
Yes.
weird. Like back when every once in a while, like Facebook shuts down for like a couple hours because of maintenance or something like that. And people go like lose their mind. Like they go start making Instagram posts or something like that. Or like, you like make a YouTube video like, oh, hey, did Facebook shut down or something like that? Like
Mm-hmm.
it's
Mm-hmm.
a social institution at this point. Like social media is
Yeah.
a social institution. It is a part of our lives. And whether it's good or bad doesn't really matter anymore. It's there. It's there to stay.
Totally. Totally.
Yeah.
Have you seen the documentary? I have not seen it. But it's about social media, Facebook.
Yep.
Okay.
Really interesting, like really mind-blowing.
Gotta watch it.
It's
I've only heard great things.
Yeah, I mean, that's
What a social dilemma.
Yeah, social dilemma. It's such a it's a fascinating kind of ordeal, but it does, I'm from like the sociology background, so I've kind of already looked into a lot of that with a number of books that I've read, and it prompts the discussion about what is privacy, because we're opting into things without really even knowing that we're opting into things. And like TikTok right now, like my phone's right here, it's listening to me, I know it's listening to me, and it's a privacy conversation, like, but at the same time, is it something that needs to be like, that's the question. Does it need to be monitored, or does it need to be like kept private? Does like what I say here need to be protected by law? And it just, that's kind of where social dilemma is kind of taking it, is like, where's the line? Because
Right.
lawmaking is so far behind what social media is.
Yeah. And I mean, the technology, yes, technology is moving so much faster than what anybody in the political arena is doing. I mean, even here in Alaska, like our physical policies are so jacked up. And then it's like this constant fight and battle. And then it's like, we're just not gonna vote on this and just see what happens. It's
Yeah.
like, why are you playing this big game, right? It's just yeah, it is not something that I dabble into too much, because it feels like almost when I was working in the government, because I can't do anything about it, and so
Right.
it just frustrates me, and then I'm just frustrated, and it's like, ah, no.
Yeah. To me, it's interesting because I, I'm always about trying to understand people, and
Mhm.
what's best for people. And that's obviously subjective, because half the people would say, yeah, protect my privacy, and they do, right? Like they actively want this. And then the other half is, well, why do you need it to be private? Like, what are you doing wrong that it needs to be private? And they're both fundamentally good ideas, right? Like, I want to be private and I'm not doing anything wrong. But what if there is someone that wants to be private and they're doing something wrong, right?
Right.
It's a question, it's a hard question, and there's no lines that can be really drawn. It's hard. It's a really hard thing to address. And I think it's going to be, I don't know.
I'm
What's going
very
to happen.
curious. Yeah, I'm very
Yeah.
curious to see how the next few years kind of transform. Like,
Right.
what
Well,
happens?
I don't want to take up all of your time talking about random things. So let's close this out. If we can always have you back on and especially I'd love to have you back on after March when you finish that TED Talk and
Oh yeah.
see the millions of views you get. I'm really excited for that because I want to hear your feedback on that. But
yeah, it's going to be a whole experience that I'm sure is going to be an interesting share.
it's gonna blow up.
Yeah.
You're gonna get a lot of attention.
I
hope you're ready.
never know what to say. I never know what to say. I
You,
welcome it. I welcome it. Life is abundant.
you're gonna crush it. You're gonna crush it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let's close this out with the final question. I've given you some time to think about it, so let me ask it. If there was a message that you could leave the world, what would it be?
Your new life will cost you your old life. Your new life will cost you your old life.
That is beautifully said.
Thank
Beautifully said.
I thought about it.
That's
Thank you for priming me.
Yeah. Sometimes I'm like, no, you're not going to get it. You're not going to get the question first. You're going to have to do it on the spot. But that's a great.
Yeah. Yeah. Because, we have to give it all up. Yeah.
I hope you write a book someday and you put that in your book. And then I hope you also say that. So look back on this podcast and say that in your speech, because that's really awesome. Right.
Thank you.
So in March, use that.
I'll write it down. I'll make it a Post-it.
Yes, please do. But let's call this a day.
Yes.
Megan,
this was great.
Yes, I agree. Thank you for joining me. This was a great conversation. I'm looking forward to hearing all about the TED Talk and watching you grow. I'm sure we're going to be having more conversations in the future. You're going to be crushing the oats industry, and you're going to be or granola industry, excuse me.
We can say oats too, though. It's okay.
Both.
They're going to know me there too.
Both. Crush it. I love it. Totally. I love what you're doing. I know you're authentic. I know you're genuine. I'm excited to see where you go.
Thanks, Dylan. I appreciate it.
So thank you for being on the episode. If you've watched or listened to this all the way through after an hour and a half, I hope you enjoyed it. If you haven't followed or subscribed, make sure you do that. Thanks for watching the Dylan Experience, and we'll see you next time. Boom.